Okay, well, welcome everyone who's on this call today, or is going to be listening to this interview in the coming days and weeks and months. My name's Dean Evans from Leading Minds Australia, and it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to be interviewing one of my mentors this morning, Alice Hamerley. Alice, welcome to the call.
Thank you so much, Dean. Looking forward to it today. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being on the call today.
Well, I am very excited now. Before I launch into the interview with you, Alice, I just want to let everyone know, or give everyone a little bit of background on you and about you. So Alice is a master trainer of NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming, and that's actually how I came to meet Alice, through many hours of training that I've been fortunate enough to have undertaken under Alice's guidance. And now, for me, I get to call her a mentor and friend, and she still plays an incredibly valuable role in assisting me in my business and endeavours. Now, Alice has also developed the Instant Insights communication systems for leadership, for relationships, and for sport, which generates some outstanding results for people in those areas of their life. I'll be honest that I'm not sure, there's not much that Alice doesn't know about leading and managing others, coaching people for outstanding results. Alice has done more than 10,000 hours of executive coaching, so she is highly qualified to share with us so much of her knowledge about coaching people for bigger results. So, without any further delay, Alice, I guess the best place to start this conversation is to think of the question, why is coaching such an important part of leading and managing people in today's professional world?
Great question, and thank you for the lovely introduction, Dean. It was very nice. Thank you. Okay, this is a very important question. Coaching has been around now, as you know, Dean, and for many of you, it's been around for decades as far as a profession. And I think there's always been coaching in business, okay, but now it has a definition, it has a title of I'm a coach. But if we look at it really, I look at coaching as an opportunity of mentorship, of guidance, and truly understanding human behavior, understanding the person who you're working with, and really to get the best out of them, motivation, to ensure that, one, they're motivated and that they're productive in the workplace. And I think that's key. It's a vital key in any business, is the productivity in the workplace. You're there to produce results, and if you don't understand people, if you don't understand how that person ticks, then you're going down a very slow and often meandering path to getting results, to that productivity.
So when you talk about mentorship and guidance,
yes,
it's really looking about creating more of a long-term relationship between two parties, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And do you think, where do you see those benefits lay for a business or an organisation in in establishing more of an ongoing coaching or mentorship type of arrangement or relationship between, say, their employees and their management group?
Right. Okay. So if we take the coaching and the mentorship and we combine the two, okay. So I think as a business leader, you are a combination of both with your team. Okay. You want a coach is a person who's able to facilitate through questions what's already in a person. So you have to be able to ask great questions and also be able to uncover where the gaps are. And the mentorship comes in when you've been there before and you can mentor, you can guide the people you're working with because you've been there before. You can become that trusted advisor to the person. And I think if you look at it, Dean, and I think if any of us look at people in our life who've really influenced us, it has been our mentors. It has been, you can call them your coaches, but they're your mentors, your guides, your teachers along the way, whether it was in high school or primary school and then early on in your career. In business, I think the business owners or someone in the business leaders, there needs to be someone there coaching and mentoring and guiding people, because you're only as good as the person who's leading. And that's where I think mentorship and coaching comes in as a vital skill, because it's a skill. It's not just something you wake up and can do. It's a skill like anything else. You need technique to be able to do it extremely well. And you need to know what to listen for, and you need to know what questions to ask, and you need to know how, when you're communicating with one person, that they are very unique in the way they create their world. So, it's a skill like any other, and great leaders are very aware of people. They're very aware and they like people, and they know how to get the best out of their people. So and that's a skill.
And I think the thing you touched on there, and we were talking before we came on air here about the importance of technique in any pursuit. Obviously, for everyone listening in now, we were talking about what makes people great at what they do, and it's their ability to perform under pressure. And with that, we were talking about the importance of getting the basics right. Of making sure the foundations are very solid from which to build, outstanding performance.
Yes.
So with that in mind, I suppose it's a really good opportunity to I guess explore, what are some of the basics, the foundations, the techniques of coaching people in the workplace. Is that something you could
absolutely
expand on for us, Alice?
Yeah, and it's great. I'm glad we had the conversation about it, Dean, because I think it's something when somebody says, what are the fundamental techniques? If you look at a sports person, their ability to kick that ball in the end zone regularly in different positions when the pressure's on. They've done it so many times. They've done that one kick 10,000 times. In business, particularly with leaders, they're very rarely trained in people skills. They're trained in how to do their technique of their product they're delivering, but not always about how to really to lead people. And there's technique in leading people, okay? If it's willy-nilly, you'll get a willy-nilly result. So very good questions. Okay, so I think a fundamental technique that every business leader needs is the ability to listen, firstly. The ability to listen, not to tell, but to listen and allow a person to have open ears, so not being judgmental in what you're hearing, but the ability to listen to what's being said, to what's not being said, to listen. I don't hear very great listening skills in leadership. I hear a lot of judgment in leadership versus the ability to listen. And a lot of times when we've got people working for us, what they actually want to be is they want to be heard first. They want to be first, seek to understand, to be understood. So we need to be able to listen. I think that's a major skill. It's not a take for granted. It's something that everyone on a daily basis can always improve upon, the ability to listen well.
Yeah, and I guess it's interesting because we're given 2 eyes and 1 tongue for a reason. That's 2 ears and 1 tongue for a reason, which was to listen twice as much as we speak. But somehow over time that ratio seems to have got flipped on its head.
Yes.
So some of those listening skills, Alice. I mean, I did read an article. Communication can be broken down into our words, into our tonality, and into our body language. And that breakdown being 7% for words, 38% tone, 55% body language. So, can you share with us a little bit, the importance of what does that mean in the context of becoming a better listener?
Better listener. All right. So these 3 areas of tonality and body language and the words that we use are what make up our communication. And the ability to listen to the tonality of someone, the ability to hear the words that someone is saying and not saying, the ability to be aware of the body language that someone is communicating. First and foremost, it develops when we truly can tap into it. It develops a strong level of trust. And I'm sure most leaders have heard of the word rapport, but I'm not sure how many people really understand what rapport truly is. Rapport is not just the ability to be like someone. It's ultimately a reptilian brain response where your brain, when it feels that it can feel safe around you, another person, the reptilian brain response doesn't do fight or flight. Instead, there's an openness. And so when you're a leader and you can truly listen to somebody and be aware of the tonality, the words, the body language, and you're present to that, immediately what can happen for a person who's on the other side of that is their reptilian response goes away. So they feel in your presence that they're safe with you. They're safe with you. Versus they're often someone is talking over somebody. The reptilian response of fight or flight might come into play. So example of that would be, Dean, I don't know, maybe you've been worked with some teams, I know you have, and some leaders, and you might find that leader is having challenges with one of their team members and say, well, they're not doing this and they're not doing that. And if you watch them interact with their team member, they're very aggressive with them. And immediately that reptilian response is there, and there's zero rapport whatsoever, because it becomes a battle of who's right and who's wrong, who's right and who's wrong. And there's no rapport in that at all. Instead, it becomes a battlefield on the playing field. And I'll use sports as an example. I mean, I know you've played lots of sports, and I've worked with lots of sports teams, et cetera. So, when you're in business, you can't be on the offense and the defense with your own teammates. You've got to all say, okay, we've got to be on the offensive line together right now to win the point, or we're all going to be on the defensive right now to preserve. And too often leaders are in the battlefront with their own team members. I'm like, no, you've got to listen. You've got to listen to the play. What is it that you and I were talking about? We were talking about great skills, but I look at great players on a sports team. They're able to read the play before the play has even happened. They're able to predict the behavior on the field before the actions happened. And that's where a leader needs to be. If you really understand your people that you're working with, you will be able to predict their behavior versus going, oh, they reacted that way. Well, you weren't listening. You weren't observing their behavior long ago before. You didn't have a deep rapport. You could see that they were going to have challenges. So what could you do to assist them earlier on to guide them, to lead them, to give them training, to give them feedback, to stretch them, to move them forward, so that inevitability that you could see happening doesn't happen. You're not setting up for success. You're setting them up not to be successful. And I'm not talking to fail. You're not setting them up to be successful.
Yeah, I love the theme that you introduced there about safety. That the people, certainly from the work that I've done, most people in a business, a vast range of them, want to do good work. They want to feel capable. They want to feel confident. They want to feel comfortable coming into work, knowing that they've got something to offer. They've got something to do well, or that there's something in that role that they can do incredibly well.
Yes.
And making people feel safe enough to go and do that is one of the great skills. Finding opportunities for people to do more of the things that they do well is really the way to build build a team, engage any one individual into their role, and the great way of doing that is making them feel safe that if they make an error or in the process of trying to do something just a little bit better, or a little bit different, innovate. If it doesn't go exactly the way that people are expecting, that there's still a level of safety around encouraging people to have a go, I guess, if you like, to do something different.
Absolutely.
And I suppose that really ties back into what you were saying before about having everyone on the same page. That it's if we're going on the offense, if we're going on innovation, which is, hey, let's try and do something a little bit better, then we're all on the same platform. Let's give it a go.
Absolutely, and I think in that we know the statistics are out there. They're saying people are not leaving their businesses, they're not leaving their careers because they're not happy with the products. They're having challenges with the leaders in the company. That's the majority of people are finding new work because of the management or the lack thereof. And people will work for people they like. There is a likeness. The day of having a bully boss are gone. The only reason someone would stay with a bully boss literally would be because they have too much fear for going out and finding somewhere else to work. So they've got a level of comfort. At least they know the devil they know rather than the devil they don't, right? So that being said, if the person has they've got their self set up enough, they can say, you know what, enough of this, I'm out of here. They'll get out. They want to work with somebody they know will care about them. They'll know that someone that will stretch them, someone that will push them to be a better performer, really, in their workplace. I don't think anybody goes to work and says, oh, let me do a half job here. I think people really go to work to really go and add value wherever they go. So I think, go ahead.
Yeah, and that I just think of my involvement this year with my eldest son's under-11 footy team. I took on the role of coaching them this year, and part of it is it wasn't about being being Mr. Nice Guy to all the boys. It was always about finding new ways for each one, recognising the individual strengths that each player had, the individual level of skill that each one of them had, working out how that would fit into the team. You know, what position would they be best suited for? What sort of things at training did we need to work on? You know, very much what were some of the foundational elements of the way the team wanted to play, and then how could we improve, you know, the individual skills of each particular player in order for the overall performance of the team to grow. And as you said there, I mean, it's I think sometimes there can be a misconception out there that you know, we've got to be liked by everyone, and that's certainly not what we're saying.
Not at all. Not at all.
Because in order to push, there's going to be some resistance from time to time. And that's where you're coming back to being able to build rapport, which breeds trust, is so critical to this whole coaching relationship, because people know that no matter what you're asking them to do, and when you are pushing, that you've actually got their best interests at heart. Because there's something within them that you see as being bigger, brighter, bolder, better than the current state of play.
That's it. And you know when it's working really well, Dean, when you've got a team member that it's looking at how it can grow the business and grow the company, that they don't feel like they're an employee at all. They do it because they literally love the company. They love the company because the company cares. And the company is not a company. The company is the people in the company. So a company is the people. If you take care of the people will take care of you. You take care of your customers will take care of you. You know, this is all around, kindness, you know. So I guess the other thing you're talking about, your boys, you know, that you're the age 11 boys, and you're their coach, and you're making sure they're in the right positions on the team, and you're going to be tough with them. But the other thing is, if you aren't putting them in the right positions, there's so many things that can happen to those kids on the field. We were watching a footy game on the weekend, and it was a group of amateurs, and the injury rates that can happen when they're not on the right position, when they're not trained up, versus we went and we saw footy, went and saw the Waratahs, you know, different ball game altogether. You know, that's a high-performing team. Everyone knows what their roles are out in that field, you know, and it was an exciting match, but you know, they had their strategy in place, they had their fundamentals in place. You could see a team of leaders on the field. Yeah, so that's key. And again, that's the ability to listen. I'm not talking only with the ears, you know, listening, what's the body saying, listen to what that tonality is communicating. How are we in rapport? You know when you're really in rapport, Dean, is when you could be with somebody, and I'm sure you're like that with your wife. There are moments you're together and you don't even speak, but you already know what each other's thinking.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really profound rapport. And when you've got a business working well, words don't even need to be said. I mean, how many times do you go into a business and they're like in meetings and meetings and meetings, and I'm going, hold on, way too many meetings. What are you meeting about? Oh, we got to know what everyone's doing. I said, well, what I'm hearing is a lack of rapport. You know, the amount of meetings that are, you know, so many corporates, you know, 5 days a week of meetings. I'm like, when are you getting your work done? Oh, we're working until 11 or 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh, okay. So we've got to take a step back. But point being is rapport unto itself is the process of liking. And you cannot be in the process of liking and building trust if you don't listen. So I think for every leader, that's the most important skill. But the second in fundamental is being able to become a clear communicator. Yeah. Very clear communicator. I don't think any leader can communicate clearly enough or too often. Clear communication. And clear communication to me, Dean, is about really knowing outcome. Real clear outcome, evidence-based outcome. Being clear on what's the evidence that we need to have this project completed. What's the evidence we need to have to get this marketing campaign up? What's the evidence we need to ensure this contract has come through? What's the evidence? What's the clear communication? And evidence, what we call an evidence procedure, that you know you have the result in your hand. Not, I'm talking to someone, that's not a result. What's the evidence that you're looking for? And that's a contract, and or money in the bank, and or a meeting is set up and the time is booked in. That's evidence. And I think leaders need to be much more clear on their evidence of clear communication.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, coming back to the example of the boys' footy team, you know, we always got very clear. There was clear evidence at the end of quarter at the end of every game as to whether what we were doing was working or what wasn't working, and then my job as coach was to either make some positional changes or help the team focus on the aspects that we were doing well that we wanted to keep doing. Some of the areas that we wanted to do more of, so some of the things we wanted to start doing, and I guess some of the things that we wanted to stop doing.
Yes,
but the importance there of that coaching relationship is to be very clear on what is it that we're all actually trying to achieve at the end of the game. And so I guess that rolled into the fundamental or the technique of being very clear, very concise with any one of our team, with any one of our staff, any one of our colleagues, individuals, on what is the actual outcome that we're looking for from their role.
Exactly, and I think you have to avoid the words "to do a good job" or "to have a great attitude." Okay, because if I see that being a KPI on people's job performance reviews, I'm going, well, I would put that as a presupposition, a presuppose that the person has that attitude. Otherwise, why would they be in your company? Okay, too often people they may have a great attitude, but they're not producing anything. You get another person who's working very, very hard and producing quite a lot, but their attitude might be a bit not as positive, right? But maybe they're doing so much because this person with this really cheery attitude isn't producing, and they're picking up the slack for that person. Okay, so attitude is determining altitude, but your attitude first and foremost is a committed attitude. You gotta get a team of committed individuals, and then the attitude will come from that. Committed, and not everybody is cheery all the day. Not everybody, but if they're committed to their role, then that is what you're looking for. The more committed your team is, then your team moves from really being an amateur team to moving to a professional team. And I was thinking about that when you're talking about your 11-year-old boys, and I was thinking about the Waratahs. Well, what's the difference? I mean, obviously we've got 11-year-olds, but who's to say one day if these kids can't be? Well, I'm not sure if Waratahs are the same type of rugby. I don't know. Kids, sorry, I got American here, but I know there's like 3 rugby games. I get it. But point being is you don't know if you've got an up-and-coming professional player on one of your teams, right?
Yeah.
And you know that right now how you lead those boys will have a determining factor if that young boy gets the skills, the ball skills, to be able to, and the mindset skills and the behavioral skills to one day think, you know what, I'd like to be a professional ball player, right? And, in business, I see too many business owners playing amateur business. They haven't accepted the call and committed to being a professional business leader or a business owner. A professional business leader, business owner, actually gets paid very well. Results are driven by the results of their team. They get paid for their results, right? It's their reputation. Professional means you educate yourself regularly. Professional means you're constantly upskilling yourself. That there is not rest. The professional is working literally 24/7 on their skills. You don't find an athlete not doing that 24/7. You won't find a professional salesperson not working 24/7. A real professional, a great salesperson. They're working 24/7. On the weekends, they're reading. On the weekends, they're still selling, They're not going, I'm going to take a day off now and relax. You won't find a teacher who's a professional taking a weekend off and going, Lala. You won't find a writer. John Maxwell very well, Dean. John Maxwell, the writer of all those amazing books called The 5 Levels of Leadership, et cetera, et cetera. And he talks about the principle of the rule of 5. And when I saw the videos, you can go on YouTube and find it. It's called the Rule of 5. He said, because the question was asked him, John, how do you write so many books? And he said, well, I'm a professional writer. He said, so I follow what's called the Rule of 5 principle. And he'd never written about the Rule of 5 in a book before. He said, well, the principle's this, to everybody. He said, principle is this: I do 5 things every day, same 5 things every day, to ensure that I write a book. And because I'm a writer, I'm a professional writer. I'm not an amateur writer, I'm a professional writer. And every day he does the same 5 things. He said, most people, what they do is they go and they're going to chop down a tree, they take an axe and they go outside and they chop down, they chop, and they get blisters on their hands, and they come in and go, oh, that tree's still standing and my hand's tired, I'll take a break. Yeah? He says he doesn't do that. He says he sharpens his axe every day, he goes out and he chops that tree 5 times. Only 5 chops, but then he goes back in. Comes out the next day, sharpens the axe, 5 chops, and eventually that tree falls. He said too many people are inconsistent, but you will never find a world-class professional athlete, performer, in any performance. I'm talking whether you're talking on stage, in Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Branson. If you won't see any of them without doing these rules of five. There are 5 things they do. So, for instance, I'll just give it. So Maxwell does his 5 things. Every day he reads. Every day he thinks about what he reads. Every day he files. Every day he asks some questions about what he's read, and then he writes. He does it 7 days a week, 365 days a year, even on Christmas and Thanksgiving, he said. Mm. And I thought, I have never met a professional athlete, and I've worked with many professional athletes and gold medalists. They have that same attitude. They don't take a day off not to eat healthily or to exercise or to train their body or their mind. 7 days a week because they've got an Olympic game coming up or they've got a grand final coming up. They're training. The opera singers I worked with 7 days a week. It doesn't make a difference. There's a difference between professional and amateur. I'm on a rant here, but I think business leaders need to say, am I going to be an amateur leader or am I going to be a professional leader? And that's a stepping up of commitment.
And I think in that the great lesson here, certainly using John Maxwell as an example, is through all the noise and all the tasks and everything that we could be doing, it's knowing what are your 5 critical tasks that you must do each and every day. And if we link that back to the idea of coaching, if as a leader, if we're very clear on what our using 5 as a great number of what our 5 things are that we must be focusing on, then that rolls over into the value of a coaching relationship, which is to help keep our people, our teams, focused on, let's say, the 5 things that they need to be working on, completing, accomplishing, achieving each and every day that they're in the workplace, that's going to allow them to produce the right results for the team or the business or the organisation.
Absolutely. And it is that consistency that gets the results. It's that consistency. So consistent action has to create a reaction. Has to. You can call it massive action, whatever you want to call it, but you got to get out there and they've got to do massive, consistent action. And many people don't know what it is, so they kind of do a bit of this and a bit of that. So I think as a leader, number 1 is every day you need to make sure you're listening, taking time to really connect and listen to your team members, okay? First and foremost, you got to be able to give them clear communication, and I think the third thing that's really key is you need to be able to give great feedback, okay? You got to give back feedback that really stretches them, agreement, you get feedback that's is a positive stretch, not negative feedback. Negative feedback, that reptilian brain, the rapport will shut right down. But you give them, I appreciate everything you're doing, give them the positive feedback, and then, and the stretch here is da-da-da-da. I appreciate what you're doing, or I really, really like what I've seen here, and da-da-da, and it's great how you've da-da-da, and here's the stretch. And I think if there can be more direct feedback, not waffly, but direct feedback that stretches them on a regular basis, everyone in the workplace will be much happier. They're getting that regular feedback. That's the job of a leader.
And that really, the word that keeps coming up in my head as you're talking about that is focus. With that feedback, if we're giving them specific and direct feedback, it actually draws their focus to the thing that we know is going to add even more value. If it's in sales, it might be focusing more on what the customer's needs are. If it's in a team environment, if we focus more on what their career goals are, then it can give us some idea of what areas they need to stretch, they need to work to improve on in order to give themselves the best opportunity for getting whatever upcoming promotions might be. Being I guess that's the old saying, specific is terrific. The more specific, the more direct we can be about one area, it really minimises the distractions that are going on for everyone in the workplace, and allows them to devote more time, more effort, more energy onto the things that are really going to get them the results that they're looking for.
Absolutely, because I always look at feedback onto that is meaning you care. If you're not giving feedback to somebody, it means you don't care. You can't be bothered. And people feel that. If once a quarter or once a 6 months or once a year they get a performance appraisal, and that's the only time they get feedback, it's just way so late. And I could see maybe people listening to the call like, well, when do I have time to do this? I'm going to say you don't have time not to do this, because at the very beginning, the feedback is the most important thing. And I see too many people hiring people, and they don't have an induction training. They don't have any way of welcoming people into a company or a business, going through the values and the vision and the missions, and then really ensuring they can do the small things correctly. And I'm talking answering the telephone properly, writing emails in a way that keeps the communication going. If you don't look at the small things, then big cracks happen in that person's performance. The small things, and that's where we say the micromanaging at the beginning becomes macro later. But at the beginning, you got to micromanage till you know that they can do those small things very well, which means they've got the technique to do the big things well. What's the first thing? Just really quick, what's the first thing you teach the boys what's one of the very first warm-ups, a universal warm-up that boys would do in rugby that even the professional players still do today?
Yeah, well, for ours, it's Australian rules footy, so AFL football. But the first thing we teach them is how to hold a ball to kick what we call a drop punt, which is the standard kick that you would see any two players if they're kicking the ball to each other. That's where the ball spins end over end backwards. And there's a pretty direct saying: if you can't kick, you can't play football. So the first thing we would work at is how they hold that ball in their hands. We don't even look at them getting to kick the ball first. It's just simply let's lay the foundation so that when the leg swings through and the foot connects the ball, that we've got the best chance of that ball going in a forward direction, spinning end over end, and staying straight. So very, very, very basic.
And that would be the same thing when the professional team would come and they'd be auditioning these guys. They'd be watching that basic technique, wouldn't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is it. This is basic technique. And business owners need to know what is the basic technique fundamentals for my business. They don't know it most of the time, and that's why they get chaos.
Yeah, it's really looking at those at the critical components of delivering a consistently high level of performance, and that varies from individual to individual based on role, based on experience, based on technical ability. It all stays the same, though, which is it's knowing for each person on your team what are the things, what are the unique things that they do incredibly well, what are they employed to do, are they doing that, and how can we help them to stay focused on doing those things and doing them just a little bit better, day after day, week after week, month after month.
Absolutely. And when that happens, what you see is the fundamentals are taken care of, aren't they? The fundamentals are taken care of. Yeah. And business fundamentals. Yeah, business fundamentals. Oh, it's good. So yeah, there's three main things here, though. So listening and clear communication with the outcome, regular feedback, and then I think a business leader as well. The fourth thing, Dean, is they have to become a great negotiator.
Yeah.
I think, win-win outcome. And I was reading a great book the other day, and I think about that. How often are we negating before we're agreeing? Yeah. So agree first. And then stretch, agree first. Then again, that goes back into rapport. People don't feel attacked. So see how long you can go as a leader to agree first, listen, agree, and then give your feedback. Okay? Oh, good. I hear where you're coming from. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Person feels, again, they've been validated, they've been heard. It's that validation. If they don't feel validated, they're going to fight you.
Yeah, because the disagreement always comes in the detail, doesn't it? And too many of these negotiation processes, and that can be as simple as introducing some sort of new software platform, or trying to go after a new market, or training a new team member, or creating a new role. The disagreement, the chaos can always come in the nitty-gritty, the little bits of details. And I guess the great example there, or a really good analogy, I certainly know that I've used with teams or business leaders before, is for the most part, people can agree that a car is a great form of transport. Transport is a great way to get around, and being able to get around is a great opportunity to go and spend time with people that we care about. So it's a great way to to build relationships and meet our our universal need for connection. So almost all people universally could say that yes, cars are great for helping us connect to other people. Wonderful. If we then go and say, but what car would you like to do that in? Well, that's where the disagreement will come. Some will say, well, we want to do it in a Holden. Others want to do it in a Ford. Others like Toyotas. Others like Mitsubishis. Some people like four-wheel drive. Some people like long base road vehicles. People like red cars, black cars, green cars, blue cars, white cars, 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, 8-cylinder. The further we go down into the detail, that's where we start to uncover the gap or the difference in what people think is a good way to move from place to place. So it is really important with what you say that we always want to be seeking to acknowledge that everyone is agreeing on the principle or the reasons why a particular change is being made or an improvement is sought to be made before we move into working out the how. We've got to agree on the why first, or the why and the what, before we move to the how.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that moves you into a great negotiation frame. I think what you're saying is spot on. Don't know where you learned that from, Dean.
Who knew?
I don't know. I think you've been in someone's courses. You're funny. And I was, one of the things, though, even before we even get into that agreement frame of the why, is literally, I'm going to say it in it's going to sound so simple, but it is also starting with agreement to begin with, that when someone is having a challenge, okay, it doesn't mean you have to say that it's right what they're feeling, but you need to agree that they're having that feeling. You need to agree that they are seeing the world in that way. That is their world. And when you do that, the ability to chunk up to purpose, and highest intention is very, very easy to do. But I think too often people are judging first. They're judging to keep their way right, versus hearing how is another person coming across with this? What is my team member really looking for? Well, firstly, if they're coming to you and wanting to talk to you, firstly they're coming to you because they care, and if you don't hear from your team members, then I say I always say, Houston, you have a problem, yeah? But if your team member comes to you, say, Joe, we got a problem here, and the great, okay, what's the problem? Good, thank you, really appreciate you sharing that with me, terrific, okay, so at this point, so what have you guys done about it? What do you think some solutions are around here? And hear how they're coming up with solutions, If they don't come up with solutions, then you got to teach them how to think about how to come up with a solution. Don't always give them the solutions,
Yeah.
And again, then we go back up to the why, which is why are we doing this? What's the outcome? What else could we do? And then what else could we do? And what else could we do to make that happen? And then how do we get there? This is all part of the leader's job of asking great questions, which is coaching. And then the mentoring is then coming and say, okay, so this is what we've come up with. Just give my little 2 bits worth here. As a mentor, you put your mentor hat out on. In the past, this is what I've done. This has worked well. You might come up with something different. I'm happy for you to go out and give them both a go and see what you come up with. And at that moment, you then you develop for them an internal frame of how they're doing, rather than you always being the person who has all the answers. You start to build up what we call their external frame of reference, which is important for your leaders in the company as well, your team members, for them to know how they're doing on the field, how they're doing in the game. Imagine you had all your boys after they came off the field, and every single one of those boys was 11 boys.
There were 11-year-old boys. I had 23 of them.
23 of them. But how many of them play at one time on the ground?
18.
18 at one time on the field at one time.
Yep. So
there are 18 players at one time on the field.
Yep.
Well, that's quite large. Okay, so it's very different from soccer.
And sometimes it's like herding cats. They're all going in different directions. It's always
okay,
fun.
so here I am, opera singer Dean. Okay, so okay, but conductor, opera singer, whatever. Point being, imagine all 18 of those players. Each one of them came up to you individually and say, "How did I do today, Coach?" Can you give me some feedback? And you had to go speak to every one of those guys, every one of those boys. You know, they've got to have inside of them knowing how they're doing. You know, how they're doing. I think that's part of the leader's role to become a great leader. You got to teach your people to give themselves their feedback as well. And that is as critical and as important as guiding them as well. You guide them, then they also give themselves feedback on how they're doing. Okay, so they develop that internal check. You know, great players, great performers know how they're doing on that stage. They don't need the audience or the goal to be the evidence. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the difference between self-analysis and self-criticism, isn't it?
Well said. Exactly.
Being critical of self. Almost brings in, well, it almost starts from a negative emotional platform of I didn't do good enough.
Yep.
As opposed to, and it's interesting because the conversation that I have with my son, who was in the team after every game, has always been every game. All right, Tyler. So tell me, what do you need to? What did you do well? What do you need to stop doing? What do you need to start doing? And what do you need to keep doing? And we have that conversation, just teaching him, which I guess is a system of thinking around how he can unemotionally monitor his own performance, and he's 10, but that can apply to any area of his life. How we're doing in our career, how am I doing in that relationship with that person, how are we doing in terms of business results for ourselves. So it becomes very, very vital for it.
It's great that you're the coach here. I just want to say one thing. When you say self-criticism versus self-analysis, self-analysis is that internal frame. The self-criticism actually comes from somebody along the way who's been externally critical to the person. So the higher a person's self-criticism, then we just know they've had a teacher or a parent along the way who's been very critical of them. I think, as a business leader, this is what you're literally having to work with every day, is that you've got, if people have high levels of self-criticism, they don't really know how they're doing, So this is your opportunity to assist them, to guide them, to coach them, to mentor them, to develop that strong level of self-analysis. It's the greatest thing you're going to give them.
It is, isn't it? And it's a wonderfully privileged position for any person to find themselves in, having the opportunity to coach and mentor other people. And it's really the difference between, I guess, being successful and feeling fulfilled in what we do, is when we can help other people to grow and develop and fulfill their own potential. The flip is that's happening for us anyway.
That's right.
Alice, to draw to a close, we talked about Maxwell and his rule of 5, and so far we've got 4 key steps of being able to coach your team to bigger results. We've got number 1, being a good listener. Number 2, being an effective communicator. Number 3, providing direct feedback. Number 4, becoming an outstanding negotiator.
Yes.
And to fit with the rule of 5, what would be the 5th key component that you see as being conducive to coaching your team for better results?
Well, I think you as a leader, you have the number 1 role to make sure that you're inspired by your business vision. You're committed to the vision. That probably should be number 1, to be honest. Committed to the vision of your business, committed to the vision of your people, committed to being the best you can be. I mean, it's true. How are you self-actualizing yourself? How are you growing yourself as a leader? That's your job. And I did a video the other day, I think you might have watched it, called the Leadership Domino Effect. And I think every leader across the board, number 1, they got to take responsibility, and that responsibility starts with the leader. If you don't take responsibility, then no one in your team will take responsibility. No one. And that responsibility, number 1, is you have to know and you have to believe in your vision. So you have to be 100% committed to your vision. So that is your number 1. Take full responsibility for the vision, and then get your team there. They're on a mission, but you got to lead it. You have to believe it's possible. The moment you don't believe, watch the ripple effect. Watch that domino effect. Watch the dominoes start to fall.
Yeah.
Okay. And then once those dominoes have fallen, you got to go back and put them all back up again. Okay. You got to follow through. If you say you're going to do something, you follow through with it. If you say you're going to have a meeting with them, you have a meeting with them. If you say you're going to connect with them, you're going to connect with them. If you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. If you don't do it, you're showing yeah, you're showing poor leadership. You're not taking responsibility for your actions and your reactions.
Yeah, because that's one of the great things of coaching, isn't it? Is that you know, you can't ask anyone to do anything that you're not prepared to do yourself.
Exactly.
Or someone said to us, I heard a great quote. You know, the minimum you demand from any one person on your team is the maximum you can expect from anyone else. And I thought that was a great way of summing it up. That you know, we've got to be prepared to do all the things that we ask anyone else to do, and then we find ways for people to do that. You know, better, more efficiently, faster, higher quality. All those elements that that come together to build a good business is really what the coach has to be monitoring and working towards. That becomes their KPIs, doesn't it?
Absolutely, because when you're able to do that, you take full responsibility. And one of the things that I say, it's your ability to respond is what responsibility means.
Yeah.
It's the ability to respond. So you as a leader, you have to take 100% responsibility, and you have to 100% commit to it. If you don't commit, if you're not committed, there's no possibility that any member of your team will be able to even come close. You know, we see this in relationships, Dean. You know, both of you and your wife, you have to take 100% responsibility for your relationship. Not you taking 100% responsibility only. You take 100% and she takes 100% responsibility. Then your relationship thrives. But if one partner is doing it all, that relationship's going to start to tumble. Yeah, the seesaw happens. Yeah, it gets tiring. Yeah, so you both take 100% responsibility for the relationship. Your relationship can thrive.
And it's the way that and when you talk about that seesaw, it's the way that, you know, you keep balancing that by making it a focus each and every day. And it's the same thing within a team. You know, we talk about, as you said before, you know, performance reviews, which you know, I've been with businesses or you know, worked with with businesses, either in them or consulting to them, talking about, you know, performance management, performance reviews, and the question is, how often do you do them? Well, every 6 months, every 12 months. Well, it's not enough.
Not enough.
And yeah, it's good to have that as perhaps, you know, the formal component of it. The real magic, the real power is in the informal component. And I certainly have this belief that, you know, it shouldn't take any more than, you know, really great, effective performance management shouldn't take much more than about 10 to 15 minutes with, you know, your key personnel every week. You know, what are you working on today? What are you working on this week? Why is that the most important thing we're working on? What needs to happen? How is that going to contribute to the overarching goal, so that the coach is aware of what people are doing, and certainly as they build their level of responsibility, their level of engagement and commitment, I suppose, it's about ensuring that they're staying focused on the end goal, on that end game. And there's a real strength and power in that, because of the 5 points we've talked about today, or covered today. Really are very quick to do, and they're happening. They're intertwining, and they're happening you know, all together at the same time.
That's right. That's right.
The key skills for the coach to monitor and to commit to mastering.
Agree. Well said.
So is there anything else that you think, to bring this all neatly together and tie that in a bow, is there anything else that needs to be added here, just to round out the understanding of how those 5 areas come together to help people produce bigger results?
Well, I think firstly, if you're listening to the call and you've been listening this entire time, firstly, I would give you a high five, because one of the things that what I notice is people are looking for quick fixes in things, and quick fixes only cause big problems. Okay, so be in it for the long term. Your people deserve it. You deserve it. So take responsibility for the long-term vision of your business, and even if you're going to sell this business in a few years, it's fine. The next business, you know, you're going to continually always be out there leading. So get great at leading people. And it starts with, firstly, continually educating yourself and get regular feedback on how you're doing in your leadership. That's why it's great, you know, if people can work with someone like you, Dean, and get feedback on how they're doing. Because you can give yourself feedback, but when you have a person who's external and has really strong leadership skills, can help you with your feedback and with your leadership skills, it's the greatest, the fastest, the most efficient, the most effective way to become a great leader. And you always need somebody who needs to mentor and to guide you. I don't believe that there's anybody out there who's still at the top of their game who doesn't have a mentor in their life or a coach in their life who's not connecting with that high performer. You know, I'm talking people. There's still somebody in their life who they connect with, and so I think every leader would know this. But I want to make sure that you have a person you can talk with, bounce ideas off of, get some guidance. They're reading and learning and experiencing different things, so they're going to bring other things to the table that you, in your world, you don't even know about. So, yeah. So definitely with Dean. You know, my goodness, I would have Dean in your business yesterday. You know, because, yeah. So I mean, I don't mean to plug you here, but I'm just going to say, if you get a person who's got a background like yourself, Dean, you know, you've worked with sports teams, you have passion for people, you know, that alone, you know what it takes to create a winning team, right?
Yeah, and we do that by falling over so often and being aware of the blind spots that you know, so many people aren't aware of, myself included when I started.
Yeah.
It's about it really comes down to, I mean, what's coaching? It's about helping people to achieve results sooner than we did ourselves.
Absolutely. So that you have fundamentals that then turn into great strategies that then can get you great results. So you have to have your fundamentals that turn into great strategies that get you results. And again, it's ongoing every day. What are your fundamentals you're going to do as a leader? Every day, what are you going to do to run the strategy so the team knows what plays they're playing? And then you'll see the results flying in. You got to have a play. Yeah. And remember, the coach always sits on the sideline and can see what's going to happen before, already sees the whole first half, how they'd like it to happen, yeah? But they can still adapt if something happens. They lose a star player, how are they going to adapt? Yeah.
It's that flexibility. I love what you said there. You know, foundations. Lay the foundations. Utilize the strategies and get the result. And I think that's just such a brilliant way to not simplify, but to make it accessible as a system, as a strategy to look at, because it provides a framework, doesn't it? You know, the foundation in any one organisation, any team, is going to be different because we've got different players who have different skills, who have different qualities. The strategy has to be born out of those skills that come to the table, and always working for the result. You know, and the result has to be the thing that everyone's agreeing on, so that people are going forward together, knowing it's like that flag in the ground. Isn't it? This is what we're working towards. This is what we're going towards. Everyone's pushing in that same direction. And then we update strategies as we improve the foundations or improve the skills. All designed to still get that result. Exactly. No matter what that might be.
That's it, because the mission is clear.
The mission is clear. Yeah, absolutely. The mission is clear. So, just to recap for everyone, get a clear mission, and that really is, if we reorder it, is point number one. You know, be inspired by your vision. You know, be inspired by your mission. Make it big enough. Yeah, be committed to it and make it big enough that you know it allows you to, it builds the energy to want to go after it. Number two is listen to your staff, build rapport with them, become an outstanding listener. Number two is communicate effectively with them, communicate around outcomes, make it outside of people or personalities, and make it about outcomes. Number four, provide specific and direct feedback. You know, what are they doing well? What's the stretch? And in doing that, we're always moving away from, you know, talk about weaknesses or gaps. We're always future focused on what needs to happen. And finally, number five, become a really effective negotiator. You know, get agreement first before moving into any of the detail.
That's it. Go do that.
That's right. Go do that. That's our 5-step. That's the 5-step foundation for coaching your team to better results. Right there. You heard it here first.
That's it. Thank you, Dean.
All right, well, Alice, thank you so much for your time. I have absolutely no doubt that anyone who's going to be listening to this interview is going to get outstanding value out of that, and is going to come away with a really great foundation and strategy for being able to coach their team to bigger and better results, no matter what industry or what pursuit they're in. So Alice, once again, thank you so much for all of your wonderful insights there.
Thank you, and congratulations to all of you business leaders out there, and thank you so much, Dean. Thank you so much for your time.
Excellent, Alice. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and here's to your higher success.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.